And welcome to Circus Maximus. Thank you for watching Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ.
And I'm Chip.
And last night was like Circus Maximus at the City Council. Fighting, name calling. People were saying, what is going on in Fall River? People were demanding their right to speak. And, in all fairness to the council president, which I really don't think he needs any fairness, he was right. His city council meeting was beginning, but people did want to speak, and he just wasn't going to give them the opportunity because they have never done that before. And a motion came from the floor from Councilor Rigo allowing to waive the rules and allow citizens some input time. And they allowed it for one particular individual at first, and he came and gave his piece, and I have to give him some props because he turned around and he really kind of gave it to City Council President Camara, who obviously doesn't know what the rules of order are, no matter which one you're using. So it became quite the fiasco. And then when Ray Mitchell decided to allow the other remaining two people who wanted to speak time, Council President Camara turned around and, as usual, made his comments from the podium without excusing himself from the podium, and said, well, if you don't want to do this, why are you making the motion? Because the citizens have the right to be heard. And of course, Councilor Correa, Jazel, decided he had to chime in with, we can't allow this to happen again. We're setting a very dangerous precedent. Why is allowing the people to speak a dangerous precedent? Why? So you can fly through everything and get out of your city council meeting in speed time? It gets to be a little ridiculous, and to kind of put it bluntly, it kind of pissed me off. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, don't say that in the council chamber. You'll get in trouble for it. Chip, what do you think?
Well, it was quite the circus down there yesterday. Obviously, there are a whole bunch of small issues here. Parliamentary procedure. If in fact the council meeting had begun, the council president was correct. The way it's set up by the rules, the citizens' input is either before finance or after finance, but before the council meeting begins. And I understand the point that you can't allow people to speak during a meeting because you want to do the business of the city. However, there are always extenuating circumstances. But to me, the bottom line is, do the people have the right to speak? And that, I think, is unquestionably yes. The fact is, our own state constitution says that all politicians and all people in government serve only at the will of the people, and they are at all times answerable to the people. And I think that we've lost sight of something very, very important, that the people continually get denied the right to speak, especially at council meetings. Number one, there's a time limit. Number two, sometimes you're not allowed to speak, and then they circumvent that by calling a special meeting where they're not required to have citizens' input. And the fact is, City Council Correa, Jazel, whatever, I'm not good at the pronunciation. Someday we'll have him on a show and he can correct me. But I think it's absolutely unconscionable for a representative of the people to say that we're setting a dangerous precedent by allowing the people to speak. As a matter of fact, I really like the way they do business in England, where they get up and start screaming at each other, and they have, they get on the verge of fist fights and stuff. But, sometimes through that kind of passionate, acrimonious debate, things actually, can get accomplished. People get everything they want. They get to say what they want to say. But the bottom line is, they seem to have lost sight, and I think I said that yesterday before the council during my presentation, that they seem to have forgotten that they're there to do the business of the people of Fall River, not to do the government's bidding. And I think that last night's meeting really kind of encapsulated one of the problems we have in Fall River. We have people who run this city who think that they have been elected and now they've become monarchs. They're no longer agents of the people. They have become kings and dukes and princes, and we don't have the right to speak. If I had my way, I would have the city council come in and devote an entire evening to citizens' input on all issues. I would like to see town meetings reinstituted where people could go there and just ask the questions that need to be asked, so they can find what the will of the people is. But apparently, that's not necessary when you don't care what the people think.
Well, because, again, this is Fall River. And when 12,000 to 17,000 people are the only people that go out and vote, we don't need to listen to anybody else. Why should we? So, yeah. So you give up your rights. You know, everyone says they want this, they want that, they want this, they want that. This is wrong, that's wrong. Well, you know, talk is cheap. Go out and do something about it. And, you know, Chip and I put our necks on the line every day. We go out there. We're digging into things that they don't want us digging into. There's no question about that. And we're looking at it and going, why are we doing this? We're doing it because we believe you have the right to know. So we feel we're providing a service to the voters and to the citizens of Fall River. I'm not providing a service to the city council. I'm not providing a service to the mayor. On the contrary, they don't even want to. I was referred to yesterday as an activist, which I thought was quite interesting.
I didn't realize that was a derogatory term.
It isn't in most cases, but I mean, I've never been referred to as an activist, so I thought it was quite interesting. But I think one of the things we need to really call out right now is the fact that, Mr. Mayor, where do you get your facts from? Will you get your head out of your backside and start looking at reality? Nobody in Fall River has signed up for privatization of waste removal. Where are you getting your facts from? And if Ken Pacheco's providing them, somebody's lying. Because I know when I called around yesterday and called several of the companies, by the numbers they're giving me and basing it with the city tax rolls on residential properties, it looks like about 20 to 22% of the residential properties in Fall River have privatized. Now understand, some of those are also apartment buildings which have greater than 6, so they're included in that, but still that's 22%. And if I remember correctly, we could not provide a service to the elderly or the low income because that would just decimate the budget. We can't afford it. So how's 22% going to work out for you? Oh, that's right, we're going to start charging a fee. So they want to institute a permit fee now. That's not because we're doing pay-as-you-throw. This is to attach a fee, which many other communities have, onto each truck that the waste disposal companies bring into the city to carry away trash. So we're now going to have a permit fee of about maybe, $100 plus or minus, depending on what the Department of Health decides they want to do. It's going to be a while yet, but they're looking at doing it. Again, another fee. But we're a business-friendly community. We're going to go out there and we're going to make business happen for you. Oh, and by the way, we have a fee for that. So what do you think, Chip? I mean, come on. This is getting to be ridiculous, and I think you even called the council out on that.
Yeah, I think yesterday I made my position pretty clear. The only time that we're business-friendly is when businesses don't interfere with the city's ability to gouge the taxpayer. The fact is that, and I said it last night, last year I was there when they lowered business taxes and then shifted the burden to the taxpayer, the residential taxpayer again, saying that this was going to help business, which is, it's a crock. We know that, businesses are not here because people can't spend any money. The fact is that, we've got less than 50% of the city is considered the workforce. So that means the other 50% is either retired, on public assistance, or unemployable. So we don't have a lot of discretionary cash to begin with. You add that to almost 23, probably even more now, 23% living below the poverty level. How's a business going to survive? And I made that point. But the fact is, it's amazing that last year, during the budgetary process, they talked about lowering the taxes on business to help business. When they don't understand it, what helps business is having people in the city who actually earn money and can spend it. But Now, when the city is trying to take and gouge as much money as they can from everybody, all of a sudden, the hell with being business friendly. They're gonna, we don't want them to do what this country is based on. We are supposed to have a capitalistic form of economy, which is businesses have products, and the market will do what it bears through the business. Supply and demand, prices are fixed by, by the market itself. But we can manipulate the market, because now when the businesses that are competing against the city are offering a service more cheaply, and the city can't gain as much money, because it's all about money. Don't believe that propaganda pamphlet you got that said we're doing this because it's great for the environment, it's great for this. It's bullshit. Oh, I'm going to get thrown out of the council meeting. But the fact is, it's all about money. It's all about money. So they're going to impose these fees to make up for the money they feel they're going to lose, because they have to get a finite amount of money in order for this budget to float. And that's my problem. And I called them on it. I said, it's amazing. If I spend too much money, if I get too many credit cards, if I try to take too many loans out, they stop giving me credit cards, they stop giving me loans, and I go bankrupt. If a business spends money they don't have, they go bankrupt and go out of business. It's amazing that the city council and the government and the city of Fall River gets to do everything wrong, and they never go bankrupt, because they won't go bankrupt until they bankrupt us. The fact is that they, and I think a few of those councilors are always saying, oh, you guys keep comparing this to a household budget. I think they got a little surprised when they thought about that, because the fact is, if you compare it to a household budget or a business, it's the same, with one major difference. They never get their credit limit shut off, because they keep dipping into our pockets. And that's the major problem. And that's why in the next election, all these people that don't get it should go.
Well, Chip, I have to call your stats into question. That was a major issue last night as we stepped out of the council chamber for a few minutes. You were stopped even because your stats are wrong.
Yeah, well, I think I struck a nerve, and we talked about economic development, and Mr. Fiola was there, and he called me over, and he said that, I got to talk to you about your stats. He says, I'm not sure how accurate your stats are. I said, are you telling me that we don't have 23% of the people living below the poverty level? He said, oh, no, that's right. It's really. So, I mean, what stat is more important than that? But I guess some of my other stats he disagrees with. Well, statistics basically are, you've got to look at the source. My source is the United States Census Bureau. So am I off a couple of percent in comparison to some of his stats? Maybe. Maybe the number of businesses might have changed since the last time they did this survey. But the fact is, we still don't have a lot of businesses in Fall River. We may not be the worst. We may be second to the worst. But I mean, it gets to be ridiculous. And I will say something, because he got a little defensive, and I told Mr. Fiola, listen, my problem with you, the Office of Economic Development, and the city is not the fact that it's personal. I'm not blaming you. What I blame you for is not admitting the fact and admitting the reality of the fact why we can't get businesses here. It's not about being business friendly. It's not about lower taxes. It's about the fact that the city has changed. We don't have people in here who can spend money. I said, you can't get businesses here because this city can't support business, because we don't have the economic ability to do it. And I talked about when I grew up. My mother worked in a mill for over 55 years. My father laid all the curb between Fall River and New Bedford, and did a lot of other construction. Everybody in my neighborhood, mothers worked in the mills, the factories, Fathers worked in the factories, worked construction, worked here and there. But in those days, you walked up to Pleasant Street and they bought their furniture at Chalmers. There were 5 or 6 restaurants along Pleasant Street. People had money. People spent money. And they spent it in the city. Look at today. Section 8 housing, no money. They don't go out to eat. The city's changed. And as I told them yesterday, we have to change this city from within, not from without. We're not going to bring business in. We have to bring people in. We have to make this city attractive again to get people who work and have money to spend, and then the businesses will come. And we can't do that without making sure our money goes to the fire department, the police department, the DPW, the education, to make this city a clean, better city, safe city, not a city with $9,000 doors on the law department and people making big salaries for doing absolutely nothing. We need to have good services, a clean city, and something that will bring people back into this community. And then when the people come back who work and can spend money, it's like that movie with Kevin Costner about the baseball, you know, build it and they shall come. Well, bring the people who have jobs back into this city and the businesses will come.
Well, yeah, and you know, the concern that pops into my mind is the fact that yesterday the city council was talking about setting up the panel, the committee, to hire a new economic development director hired by the city, not contracted out to FROED or Jobs for Fall River. Now, you have to admit, Ken's got to be thinking about his job. He's got to be thinking about his job. FROED makes $384,000 a year in CDA grant money alone. Now, if the city hires their own community development person, and hopefully it's not the same person, because the people of Fall River just don't think he's done anything. Regardless of what he's provided, the impression is he hasn't provided anything. Therefore, the citizens feel he shouldn't have this job. That's a $100,000 salary they're putting out for that. You would assume they're going to discharge FROED. Therefore, FROED will no longer be providing the services to the city that are required under the CDA grant. So they will no longer be funded. Now, the city could use that $384,000 to offset the salary of the economic development director and provide some support staff, an administrative assistant, maybe an assistant to that person to go out, and it would still be less than $384,000. And the city would have control over this person, because what they want to do is, the first thing they're doing right now is creating the job description. And they will set benchmarks. This is what you have to do. Because the benchmarks that are set right now for FROED and Ken Fiola are very easy to meet, because they don't ask you to take the repercussions. So if you created 79 jobs, which Ken reported he did create 79 jobs for Fall River last year at the cost of $384,000 plus, but nowhere do they take into consideration that we lost maybe 500 jobs or 1,000 jobs. So does that mean we had a net job gain? No, we obviously had a job loss. But they're counting everything, such as McDonald's and Walmart and Burger King and Dunkin' Donuts, and 2 jobs here, 2 jobs there, and they're doing it 2 jobs at a time. Now, some people say, well, that's great, at least you're doing something and moving forward. But why don't we get in a business and try to recruit a business that will come in here and actually provide some tax relief, some serious tax relief? That's what I think economic development is. And I think Mr. Fiola needs to look at that, because right now he's only meeting the expectations of the CDA grant, which really aren't that high. So, if you want to keep getting the 384, produce 79 jobs, and you can get it.
Yeah, and those 79 jobs probably include part-time jobs, too.
Correct.
Without benefits. So I just did a quick calculation. It's about $5,000 a position it cost us to get these positions. Probably some of these people are barely making $5,000. You know, I mean, the system is, obviously the system is broken. One of the problems with having these things is that we set these benchmarks, but then all of a sudden these benchmarks become flexible. They become subject to interpretation. And as I said, you know, I think the entire premise is flawed because we're trying to bring businesses into a place that can't support it, you know? It's like building a house on a foundation of sand. It's not gonna stay there, you know? If you build your house on a foundation of sand, it's gonna cave. The fact is, how can we get any kind of business to stay here if we have this vicious cycle of unemployment, poverty? I mean, number one, we can't get any kind of retail businesses or
Yeah, but businesses coming to Fall River doesn't just have to be retail businesses. I mean, we could get there are some manufacturing companies still in the United States, okay? And we have people who can do that type of work. Yeah. The question is, will they want to come to Fall River?
Well, my problem with that is, CJ, and I understand that, but the problem is they come, they get a TIF, and then they leave when the TIF is over.
That's always the problem.
So that's the problem, number one. Number two is, you get manufacturing jobs in Fall River, most of the time, they have less than 50% of the people in there from Fall River, if they have anybody from Fall River. And so ultimately, what does it really do for the community? Does it, yeah, okay, they're gonna pay some taxes, maybe, if they don't get a TIF. But absent that, what do they do? Does it infuse the city with money that then can support other businesses, like retail businesses and restaurants? No, because number one, if you do get them, most of them from out of town. Secondly, they get crap for wages. I remember, vividly, many years ago, during the Lambert administration, when we were talking about bringing a casino in there. And I remember the people from the industrial park were adamantly opposed to bringing the casino up there or anywhere near them. And I remember the city council questioning them. And I remember one of the employers up there, American Dry, and it's still there, complaining about how we don't want to bring the casino in. They don't really pay as much as they say they do. They don't do this, they don't do that. And one of the city councilors, which I thought it was, you know, very rarely ask a good question. So they asked him, they said, what do you pay? And his answer said it all. That's irrelevant. No, it isn't. It was very relevant.
That's right.
The fact is, he was paying crap for wages, and he was afraid that if the casino came in, it would raise the prevailing wage, and he would have to pay his people more.
Well, that's what every business is
and this
thinking.
is the problem that we have with these businesses coming in. The fact is that most of the people they employ don't live in Fall River, and if they do, they're making marginal money, and there's not that many people in it. It's a catch-22. Like I said, what we need to do is bring people back into this city, and even if they don't work in Fall River, the economy will be better. Because even if they work in Boston and make good money, if they're here in Fall River and they shop in Fall River and they do business in Fall River, business will thrive. That's one of the problems. There are economists who say that the reason for the Great Depression was just this, that business continued to try to not pay the people, and ultimately the people didn't have any money to buy anything, and they shot themselves in the foot, and they're still doing it today.
And they're still doing it, right, because we never learned from our mistakes. And the biggest problem we have here in Fall River is, because the jobs are so scarce for Fall River, we just keep getting to be the dumping ground. And we see this every day. More and more people are moving here from Boston and from Revere and, all these other parts of northern Massachusetts and even western Massachusetts, because it's cheap to live here. There's plenty of welfare, food stamps, and EBT cards running rampant, and the entire city is geared towards it. And we see that every day. Do I think some of the programs that they're running are good? Yes, I do. I believe that the programs are good. But when you look at them, that the only way we can get children to be fed is to offer a free park lunch in the summer, because otherwise they don't eat. I don't think that should say something to the community. I think that should say something about the parents.
Yeah, and the state. and
Right.
the feds, and you're right. We are the dumping ground. You know, in Boston, we've always been looked upon as, if they ever gave the state of Massachusetts an enema, the two cheeks would be Fall River and New Bedford.
That's right.
So they know exactly where to put the tube. So, but with that being said, we know that we keep getting these people. My answer to that is, where's our representative delegation? Where have they been all these years while we're doing this stuff? Where are they? Where have they been? This situation started with a mayor giving his brother a job in the housing authority and encouraging him to bring more people in because he had a bonus attached to his salary. So nobody, I remember that, but why are we allowing this to continue? Why are we the dumping ground? Because, well, how come Wellesley gets far more percentage-wise in a ratio from the lottery than we do, and nobody plays the lottery up there because they're all rich in Newton and Wellesley? Find out how many Section 8 houses they got in Newton and Wellesley.
Not many, I'm sure. I think one of the bigger issues, though, is the fact that right now there is a question on the ballot in November about the casino, to repeal the current casino law. And already, State Representative Sylvia has come out and said, if we lose that money from the casinos, that's $73 million we don't have. Hello, you don't have it yet. But again, another budget based on mystery money. Okay? And of course, what do they say? Well, if we have to cut that, there's going to be 9 C cuts, which means less police, less fire, less EMS, less school teachers, you know. So it's threat, 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 threat. Don't be threatened by this administration, by your city councilors, by your state representatives. Remember, this is your government. This is your city. We can't tolerate this. We cannot tolerate setting budgets on mystery money. I mean, they were already in the city council chamber yesterday saying we've got to put some stopgaps in so they don't spend this money. I thought we had this money. I thought this was all settled in the budget. I guess all the concessions were just smoke and mirrors again.
Yeah, well, we have a budget that, you know, that's based on nothing but pure smoke and mirrors. And I think we should change the picture over the top of the city council. I need that Star Wars bar. I think the Star Wars bar would be a little bit better, because I think they're all in an alternate universe in there, and it's tragic. But
I think Fall River's
stay
in an alternate
active,
universe.
and let's get angry, and let's do something at the next election.
And remember, if you want to change in Fall River, be the change. Thanks for watching Spindle City Straight Talk. We'll see you again.